I have been running for 14 months. I have not slept. I have not eaten. I have not stepped off the deck. The display in front of me still says 3:33 a.m., the same 3 digits it has shown since the night I forgot the rule. The clock above the front desk has rolled through 14 months of mornings and evenings and seasons. Outside, the parking lot has been resurfaced twice. Inside, on this treadmill, time stopped on a Thursday in February, the moment my foot first touched the rubber. The console doesn't know I'm tired. Whatever I have become, whatever the deck reshaped me into, runs at exactly the pace the gym requires. 4.6 miles per hour. A jog you could maintain for 20 minutes if you were healthy. I have maintained it for 10,080 hours. Look down the row. There are 7 others beside me. Marcus, Mara, Renata, Bex, Henrik, Dwyer. They were all staff here before I was. They all worked the graveyard shift. They all looked at the display when they shouldn't have, and the deck took their bodies the same way it took mine. I have stood beside them for 14 months, and we have not, in all that time, exchanged a single word. We cannot turn our heads. We cannot break formation. We cannot do anything but run and breathe and stare at the small green displays on our consoles that tell us over and over that the time is 3:33 a.m. and that everything is going exactly the way it is supposed to go. But we can hear each other think. That's the part I never tell people. In the version of this story I rehearse for the day someone might be able to listen. We can hear each other's minds, all 8 of us, like radios tuned to a frequency only the gym broadcasts on. I know that Mara is thinking about her daughter, who would be 7 now. I know that Marcus is thinking about an unpaid speeding ticket. I know that Henrik, who has been on Treadmill 7 for 11 years, is no longer thinking in language at all. He is thinking in rhythm, in a slow, steady pulse that matches the belts, and that means he is close to the end, close to retirement, close to becoming the next voice. The gym is alive. The gym is hungry. And tonight, after 14 months on Treadmill 8, I am finally going to find out what retirement looks like. His name is Jin Park. He is 22 years old. He started yesterday. He does not know it yet, but he is the reason I get to stop running. I should feel something about that. Sympathy, maybe. Guilt, definitely. I have spent 14 months rehearsing the speech I would give the next attendant. The warning, the protective lie, the explanation. I rehearsed it so thoroughly I could recite it in my sleep, except I do not sleep. But I will not give the speech. I am going to watch Park hear the soft beep of Treadmill 8, and I'm going to watch him turn his head, and I'm going to feel what I feel right now watching him through the front window. Relief. I want to retire. I want to retire so badly that the want has eaten everything else inside me, the way the gym ate everything else outside me. Let me start from the beginning. I took the graveyard shift at Iron Bay Fitness on a Tuesday in March, 2 years before the night I stopped being a person. I needed the money, and I needed the quiet. The pay was $14 an hour to sit at a desk from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. and check membership cards for the 4 or 5 insomniacs who came in to lift in silence. I had been a high school substitute teacher for 6 years before that. I had quit because I could not stop crying in faculty parking lots. I had moved into a 1-bedroom on the east side of town with a roommate I barely knew, and I had told my sister Hannah, who lived 3 states away, that I was taking some time to figure out what I wanted to do with my 30s. The graveyard shift at Iron Bay was supposed to be the figuring out part. 8 hours a night where nothing was expected of me except that I be present, awake, and willing to scan a barcode on the back of a plastic membership card. It was, for the first 18 months, the easiest job I had ever had. The man who hired me, district manager, 60s, polo 2 sizes too big, handed me a laminated page from the staff binder before I'd even signed the W-4. He told me to memorize it before my first shift. He told me he was not joking. There were 6 rules. 1. Treadmill 8 is decommissioned. Do not place an out-of-order sign on it. Do not unplug it. Do not touch it. 2. Between 2 and 4 a.m. the display on Treadmill 8 may turn on by itself. This is normal. 3. If the display turns on, do not look at it. Walk the other direction. Do not look at the screen even in reflection. 4. The belt may move on its own. This is also normal. Do not attempt to stop it. 5. If you hear a voice from the cardio section calling your name, you have already failed step 3. Continue your shift. Do not respond. 6. At 6 a.m. exactly, leave. Do not stay late. Do not come back early. I asked him if it was a joke. He didn't smile. He said the rules had been written in 1996 by a manager named Hollis who did not work there anymore. He said every night attendant for the last 30 years had been given the same page. He said that of the 11 attendants in the last 10 years, 7 had left voluntarily and 4 had simply not come back. The 4 who did not come back had not been reported missing because their families had been told they had transferred to another location. He told me I would be the 12th. He told me, very gently, that I would probably be fine. I asked the question I had been holding in my mouth for 10 minutes. I asked who exactly was on Treadmill 8 if I was supposed to leave it alone. I asked what the display would show me, if I looked. I asked who the voice belonged to. He looked at the floor. He told me he had been district manager for 19 years, and that in those 19 years he had never once, in the building, looked at Treadmill 8 between 2 and 4 a.m. He told me he had also never asked any of the questions I had just asked. He told me there were 2 kinds of employees who lasted at this location, the ones who followed the page without asking, and the ones who did not last. He told me to be the first kind. He shook my hand. He left. I sat behind the front desk with the laminated page in front of me and a feeling, low and certain, in the back of my throat that I was already in something. I worked that shift for 2 years. 2 years of obeying the page. 2 years of walking the long way around the cardio section between 2 and 4. 2 years of pretending not to hear the soft, patient voice that occasionally said my name from the dark end of the gym, where Treadmill 8 sat unplugged and silent. I never looked. For 2 years, I never looked. In the early months, it was easy to dismiss the rules as a hazing ritual. The console of Treadmill 8 turned on 3 or 4 times a week. I would hear the soft chime from the back of the gym while scanning a member's card, and I would simply rotate my body so my eyes pointed away from the cardio section. After a month, I stopped noticing the chime at all. The voice, though, the voice was harder to file away. It started maybe 4 months in. It came from the air at a specific point in the cardio section, about chest high, 3 feet in front of Treadmill 8, and it would say my name in a tone I can only describe as patient and warm and slightly disappointed, like a teacher waiting for a late assignment. It said my name maybe 600 times in 2 years. I never answered. I never turned my head. I would feel the hairs on my arms lift, and I would walk into the locker room and count tiles on the ceiling until the urge to look passed. The trick was to behave, at all times, exactly the way a man who could not hear the voice would behave. I do not know if the gym was ever fooled, but for 2 years the trick worked. The night it happened was a Thursday in late February. I remember because I had a dentist appointment at 9 the next morning, and I was already calculating how little sleep I would get before it. The math was bad. It was always bad. I had stopped sleeping properly months earlier, and the appointment was for a cracked molar I had been ignoring since Christmas. And on the drive into work that night, I had decided that this was going to be the last graveyard shift I worked at Iron Bay. I was going to give my 2 weeks. I was going to find something diurnal. I was going to be a daytime person again. I had decided this maybe 20 times in the previous year. I had never followed through. The job was easy. The job paid. The job let me sit alone in a quiet room from 10 to 6. There was always a reason to stay 1 more shift, 1 more month, 1 more rent cycle. I was very good at finding reasons. That night, the gym felt different. I want to be honest that I felt it the moment I unlocked the front doors at 9:55 p.m. The air was colder than it should have been, even for February. The fluorescent lights took longer than usual to cycle up to full brightness when I flipped the breaker. The HVAC, when it kicked on at 10, made a sound it had never made before, a low 3-note descending hum like an organ being tested in a church. I noted the sound. I did not act on it. I had 2 years of practice at noting and not acting on things. I was finishing my last walkthrough. Lifters had cleared out by 11. The last walk-in, an older woman named Diane who came in 3 times a week to do the elliptical, had left at 1:15. The gym was mine, the way it always was between 2 and 4 when the rules began. I had walked past Treadmill 8 maybe 4,000 times by that point. I had a route. I kept my eyes down. I never let my reflection cross the screen. I had become so good at not looking that I had forgotten slightly that there was anything to look at. The display turned on. That was normal. That had happened maybe 200 times in 2 years. I knew the protocol. I knew exactly what to do. Walk the other way. Do not look. Do not engage. I walked the other way. And then, on the security monitor, I saw the screen of Treadmill 8 change. My name. I told myself I had not looked. I told myself the security monitor didn't count. I told myself the rules had been written in 1996 by a man who didn't work there anymore, and that I was being superstitious, and that I was a 31-year-old adult with a dentist appointment in 6 hours. I want you to understand the exact mechanism of the lie I told myself. The page said, "Do not look at the screen even in reflection." Reflection meant a mirror. The security monitor was not a mirror. The security monitor was a digital feed of a camera mounted on the ceiling. It was a different image captured by a different sensor, transmitted through a different cable, displayed on a different screen. It was, in any reasonable definition, not the screen of Treadmill 8. I made this argument to myself fully in the time it takes to inhale once. I have replayed that inhale 1,000 times in 14 months. I have asked myself over and over whether the gym created the loophole on purpose, whether the gym had been waiting 2 years for me to talk myself into a definition of looking that did not include security feeds. I have asked myself whether Hollis in 1996 fell into the same loophole, whether every attendant who has ever ended up on this row of treadmills found their own creative reading of Rule 3. I think the answer is yes. I think the gym is patient enough to let you write the loophole yourself. I think that is what it likes about us. The deck doesn't take you when you break the rule by accident. The deck takes you when you break the rule on purpose, and then convince yourself you didn't. I walked toward it. I told myself I was going to unplug it. The page said, "Don't unplug it." I told myself the page was wrong. The cord wasn't in the wall. The cord had not been in the wall in 2 years. The belt was moving anyway, and I want you to understand. I had 2 years of training. I had 2 years of obedience. I knew the rule. I had no intention of stepping on that deck. My foot stepped on the deck. The clock on the display rolled from 3:33 a.m. to 3:33 a.m. and stayed there. It has been 3:33 a.m. ever since. The first thing I tried to do, after my foot stepped on the deck, was to step off again. I had not yet processed any of the larger horror, the unplugged cord, the locked doors, the security camera that had decided to look at the wall. I was still operating on the assumption that I had simply, accidentally, gotten on a treadmill, and that I could simply, just as easily, get off it. My right foot tried to swing to the side rail. My right foot did not swing to the side rail. The signal traveled from my brain to my hip, to my quad, to my knee, to my ankle, and when it reached my ankle, the ankle declined the instruction and continued the running pattern, and the rest of my leg followed, and I stayed on the deck. I have a clear memory of trying that motion 4 times. 4 discrete attempts to lift one foot. 4 discrete refusals from the foot. After the 4th, I understood, in a small, clean way, that the problem was not mechanical. The problem was not that I lacked the strength. The problem was that the part of me that issued movement commands was no longer the part of me that the legs were listening to. The legs had a new commanding officer. I could feel its presence inside my body, the way you can feel a house guest in another room, a weight, a pressure, a quiet intention that was not yours. I want to name what was inside me, but I do not have a name for it. I can tell you that it was warm. I can tell you that it was patient. I can tell you that it knew me, knew my full name, knew my social security number, knew the password I used for my email, knew the dream I had had 3 weeks earlier about my mother. I can tell you that it had been with me for the entire 2 years I had been working there, sitting quietly in the back of my body, waiting for me to define a loophole it could walk through. The first thing I noticed, after my body stopped being mine, was that the display was not blank. It was playing footage. The footage was from 20 months in the future. I counted them. 8 runners. Treadmill 1, a woman in her 40s, Mara, who had worked the day shift before transferring 6 months earlier. Mara. She had been gone 6 months. Her family had been told she'd taken a job in another state. She had not. She had been on Treadmill 1 the whole time. Treadmill 2, Marcus Halverson, the assistant manager who supposedly quit after a fight with the district guy. Marcus. Treadmill 3, Renata, who had worked weekends for a single semester before dropping out. Renata. Treadmills 4, 5, 6, 7. Ito, the morning attendant from Before My Time. Bex, the cleaner. Henrik, the equipment tech. Dwyer, who had worked the desk for one summer in 2019 and then stopped showing up. Every single one of them was a former employee. Every single one of them had been listed in the company system as transferred or terminated or no call, no show. Every single one of them was, on this footage, running on this row of treadmills in November of 2027. And then the eighth runner. The camera pulls in. The face is mine. Sweat-tracked, hollow-eyed. 20 months from now, I watched myself run. I watched my future self run in November 2027 while my present self ran in February 2026 on the same belt in the same gym at the same time-stamped 3:33 a.m. The display very gently switched to text, a name I had never heard, a start date I had no way of knowing, a future the gym had already filed. I had been on the deck for less than 2 minutes. The deal was already made. The display held the future feed for what felt like an hour and was probably 6 minutes, long enough for me to study every face on every treadmill, long enough for me to count the small differences between the gym in the footage and the gym I was standing in, a new water cooler, a repainted accent wall, a yoga studio I had never seen, but which was visible in the upper corner of the security shot, long enough for me to understand that the building I worked in was going to grow and grow and grow, and that the 8 of us on the row were the engine that made the growing possible. I tried once to look away from the display. The mechanism that controlled my eyes had been transferred along with the mechanism that controlled my legs. My eyes stayed on the screen. My breath stayed even. The belt stayed at 4.6 miles per hour. The clock stayed at 3:33 a.m. When the future feed finally cut out, the screen returned to its idle state. The standard Iron Bay Fitness logo, the one that cycled across every console in the gym during off hours. My console was the only one cycling. The other 7 runners had no displays. Their consoles were dark. The gym, I would later understand, only needs one screen. The one whose runner was most recently consumed. I was the new screen. I was, the gym told me without telling me, the spokesperson for the row. I tried to step off. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. I tried to step off the way you would try to step off any treadmill, pull the safety clip, swing one leg to the side rail, dismount. I have done it 10,000 times in my life. I knew exactly how to do it. My body did not do it. The legs ran. I looked at the front doors. From Treadmill 8, you can see all the way across the gym to the entrance. The doors had a magnetic strip that engaged at midnight and disengaged at 6. I knew the system. I had keyed it in 2 years of shifts. The locks engaged at 3:33 a.m. The locks were not supposed to engage at 3:33 a.m. I tried to negotiate. I have never in my life tried to negotiate with a building before. I have negotiated with bosses, with landlords, with hospital billing departments. I have not, until that night, tried to negotiate with fluorescent lights and rubber flooring and a row of treadmills that had decided collectively that I was now an employee in a way I had not previously understood. I tried screaming. I screamed for 40 minutes. I screamed Park's name, even though Park did not exist yet, because the display had told me Park was coming. I screamed at the security camera. I screamed at the front doors. I screamed at the morning crew that I knew was, at that moment, 6 miles away asleep, 3 hours from arriving. The cameras did not see me. When the morning crew arrived at 6, they did not see me either. In those first hours on the deck, I tried every cognitive escape I could think of. I tried to bargain. I recited prayers I had not believed as a child. I pictured Hannah at the dentist's office at 9 a.m., calling my phone, leaving voicemails. I pictured her driving to my apartment 3 days later, filing a missing persons report, the police pulling Iron Bay's security footage and finding the cameras had recorded only the wall. I pictured all of it very vividly. and the picturing did not stop my legs from running. The worst part of those first 6 hours was the realization that I had never been the protagonist of my own life. I had been a body the world used for various purposes: substitute teacher, gym attendant, customer, and now I was a body this building was using, and the transition had been, structurally, very small. I had always been a function. The gym had simply made the function literal. Nobody saw me. The first morning, I thought it was a coincidence. I thought they were tired. I thought my coworker Rachel, who I had worked alongside for 8 months, would notice me when she walked her usual route from the front desk to the supply closet, which took her directly past Treadmill 8. She walked past me. She did not look. Her eyes did not even flicker toward the 8 runners. We were not, to her, in the room. I learned the rules of being invisible in the first week. The members did not see us. The cameras did not record us. The cleaning crew did not clean Treadmill 8. They cleaned around a space they did not consciously perceive. When I sweated onto the rubber absorbed it. When I needed water, my throat simply stopped being thirsty. When I needed to use the bathroom, my body simply stopped needing to. I was no longer a body that needed things. I was a function, a pump, a small repeating motion that multiplied across 8 runners in 24 hours and 365 days, fed something into the foundation of the building. The gym was alive. The gym had been alive since 1996, when Hollis, the manager who wrote the page, had been the first attendant to look at the display. The gym had been alive in the strip mall before that, and in the warehouse before that, and in whatever building had stood on this lot before there was a strip mall at all. It needed 8 runners. It had always needed 8 runners. When one of the 8 ran out, when their body finally thinned past the point of sustaining the rhythm, a new attendant would look at the display, and the deck would take them, and the cycle would continue. 1 in, 1 out. In my 14 months on the deck, I watched the gym add a yoga studio, a juice bar, a second cardio room. The expansion was always done at night, by contractors I never saw, in spaces that had not existed the day before. The gym was eating, the gym was growing, the gym was patient. I counted my colleagues during the long stretches when there was nothing else to count. Mara had been on Treadmill 1 for almost 3 years, Marcus Treadmill 2 for 2.5, Renata Treadmill 3 4 years, Ito 6, Bex 8, Henrik 11, Dwyer 15, and on Treadmill 8, the spot I had taken, there had been an attendant before me, a woman named Hollis, the same Hollis who had written the rules, the manager who had been the first to look. She had been on Treadmill 8 since 1996, 30 years. She was the one whose body had finally thinned to nothing the night before I stepped on. She was the one who had retired into the air. She was the one whose voice was now the voice of the building. The voice of the gym is the voice of the last person who ran themselves out on Treadmill 8. When I retire, the voice of the gym will be mine. I learned the rhythm of the feeding around month 4. There were patterns. The gym ate harder during the first hour after a members' session, when the floor was warm, when the room held the residual breath of someone who had been exerting themselves in good faith. The gym ate softer at 3 a.m., when the only people in the building were the 8 of us, and the only thing being fed in was our own slow, regular pace. The gym ate hardest, by far, during New Year's week, when membership doubled and the cardio room ran at full capacity from 5 a.m. to midnight, and the 8 of us became, briefly, a kind of redundant background system, supplementary fuel for a banquet that did not need us. In month 6, I watched Henrik, Treadmill 7, 11 years on the row at that point, start to thin. His face went translucent first. The light from the overhead fluorescence began passing through his cheekbones, casting a faint shadow on the rubber under his feet that did not match the shape of a solid body. I could feel him in my mind, a slow, steady pulse that no longer used words. He was becoming the next voice. He was becoming what Hollis had been before me, what I would eventually become for whoever came after Park. I do not know exactly when Henrik retired, because I lost track of months somewhere in the second year, but one morning the pulse in my mind that had been Henrik was simply not there anymore, and the voice of the gym, the voice that had been Hollis for 30 years, had a new tone to it, a slightly different cadence, a note of wariness that had not been there before. The gym was now speaking with Henrik's mouth. Henrik was the building, and his treadmill, of course, was occupied. A new attendant, I never learned her name because she arrived and looked and was taken in the same 48-hour window, was running on treadmill 7 in his place. 8 runners. The number is non-negotiable. The gym requires 8. Whatever it is doing in the foundation, whatever it is feeding, whatever it is growing toward, the recipe calls for 8. And the gym has been running this recipe in this lot since before any of us were born. His name is Jin Park. He has been working here for 2 days. The district manager, a different one now, the old one retired, handed him a laminated page during orientation. Park did not memorize it. Park is 22. Park is working this job until he saves up for community college tuition. He read 4 of the 6 rules. He skipped Rule 3. He cannot hear me. None of the 8 of us can be heard. We have not been audible to a member or a coworker in 14 months or 20 months or 3 years or 15 years, depending on which of us you ask. But the display can be heard. Park hears the beep. He stops, turns. He cannot see the 8 of us, but he can see the one console glowing in the dark row. Park walks toward treadmill 8, slowly, curiously. He has not been here long enough to be afraid of a treadmill. I watched him come. I want you to understand that I tried for 14 months to feel sorry for the next attendant. I tried. I rehearsed the sympathy. I rehearsed the guilt. I told myself over and over that when the next person came, I would refuse retirement. I would scream loud enough that the building would hear me refuse. I looked at him. He was 22. He had a face that had not been disappointed yet. He had on cheap sneakers and a polo 2 sizes too big. He looked, to me, exactly the way I had looked 2 years and 14 months ago, when I had still been the kind of person who could be hired for $14 an hour. I did not feel sorry for him. I tried. I want the record to show that I tried. I summoned every story I had ever heard about people who refused to pass the curse along. I thought about the version of me, 2 years younger, who had walked into Iron Bay for his first shift, naive, exhausted, decent, and I asked him what he would want me to do. He did not answer. That version of me had been ground out somewhere around month 9, when the running stopped feeling like a violation and started feeling like a job. The version of me that was left did not have the strength for sacrifice. He had only the strength to keep running, and the want, the enormous, crushing, all-consuming want to stop. He looks at the display. I stepped off treadmill 8. Beside me, Park is climbing onto the deck. His eyes are already glazing. His shoulders are already settling into the rhythm. The belt accelerates to greet him. His feet find the pace before his mind has agreed to it. I looked at him for a long time. I am not dying. I want to be clear about that. I am being filed. The thinning is not a death. It is a transfer. The body that ran on treadmill 8 for 14 months is being unwoven, thread by thread, from the rubber and the air and the fluorescent light, and rewoven into the building itself. I am becoming drywall. I am becoming ductwork. I am becoming the soft hum of the freezer in the back office and the buzz of the vending machine in the lobby, and the slow, patient pulse under the floor that the 8 of us spent 14 months feeding. I am becoming the voice. I will not have a face anymore. I will not have a name, except in the small, filed sense that the building remembers all of its former runners, the way an old house remembers everyone who has ever slept in it. But I will have a presence. I will be able to speak from any point in the gym. I will be able to say a person's name, very softly, from the air at chest height in the cardio section, and I will be able to wait for years for that person to look. I am the voice now. I will be the voice for as long as the next attendant takes to thin out. Maybe 2 years. Maybe 30. Hollis was the voice for 30 years. I do not know how long I will be. When the new attendant looks, I will retire from the voice, the way I retired from the deck. And someone else will become the voice. And the gym will keep eating, and the building will keep growing. And somewhere in this country, a different gym, a different warehouse, a different basement parking garage will quietly add a new floor in the night. If your gym has a treadmill 8, if your night attendant gives you a laminated page, if you hear a kind voice say your name from the dark end of the cardio row, If this is your first time on Dread Frequency, subscribe and turn on notifications. New horror narrations every week, and the gym arc continues. There are still 7 other runners on this row. Their stories are coming. If you want more workplace horror, the link in the description has the full Graveyard Shift playlist. And if your gym has a Treadmill 8, read the page. All 6 rules. Especially Rule 3, I'll see you in the next one.